This is a CBS News Special Report. I'm Jeff Glor reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York. Good afternoon. President Trump has just signed an executive order that makes a major change in the zero-tolerance policy for undocumented immigrants apprehended at the border. They will still now be prosecuted, but children will no longer be separated from their parents. The president signed the order just a few minutes ago in the Oval Office. He had announced this change in policy at a meeting earlier today. He says he believes this eventually, the policy change will be matched by legislation. That legislation in the future is still to be determined. The president has also now today canceled this congressional picnic, which was scheduled for tomorrow. He said it would not look appropriate to hold that at this time. Let's go now to the signing of this executive order.
Thank you very much. We're signing an executive order. I consider it to be a very important executive order. It's about keeping families together while at the same time being sure that we have a very powerful, very strong border, and border security will be equal, if not greater, than previously. So we're going to have strong, very strong borders, but we're going to keep the families together. I didn't like the sight or the feeling of families being separated. There's a problem that's gone on for many years, as you know, through many administrations, and we're working very hard on immigration. It's been just left out in the cold. People haven't dealt with it, and we are dealing with it. So step by step, just like we dealt with North Korea, we dealt with Iran, we dealt with an economy that was heading in the wrong direction, we dealt with a lot of different problems. This is one that has been gone on for many decades. So we're keeping families together, and this will solve that problem. At the same time, we are keeping a very powerful border, and it continues to be a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance for people that enter our country illegally. With that, I'd ask Mike Pence, Vice President, if he'd like to say anything.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I think what the President's made clear is we believe it's a false choice between whether we are a country of law and order, a country with borders, and a country that demonstrates the compassion and the heart of the American people and respect for families. By taking this action, the President will make it possible for us to continue to engage in enforcing the law against individuals who violate our law, come into our country illegally, but now we'll be able in that prosecution in the immediate days forward to keep families together as that goes forward. But we are calling on Congress to change the laws in this regard and in a broad range of areas that will secure our borders and give us strength and confidence that we are once again going to take the steps necessary to end the crisis of illegal immigration in America.
I think the word compassion comes into it, but it's still equally as tough, if not tougher. Secretary Nielsen, would you like to say
I just thank you for your leadership, sir. We look forward and expect the House to act this week. We ask them to do their job. The laws need to be changed. This is a problem that president after president has dealt with for decades. This one is willing to stand up and fix it. We ask Congress to do their part. Thank you, sir, for your leadership.
Thank you very much. Great job. Okay. You're going to have a lot of happy people.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Why did you wait so long
This has been going on for 60 years. 60 years. Nobody's taken care of it. Nobody's had the political courage to take care of it, but we're going to take care of it. But it's been going on. It's been going on for a long time.
Do you think you're backing down? Critics.
No, the border is just as tough, but we do want to keep families together. This is a problem. If you look at some of those horrible scenes from a few years ago, to me, they were horrible scenes. They were just terrible. And that was during the Obama administration. Other administrations have had the same thing. We're keeping the family together. And so this is it. And also, there may be some litigation. We're also wanting to go through Congress. We will be going through Congress. We're working on a much more comprehensive bill. A lot of good things are happening toward immigration and proper immigration. But we have to have strong borders. And ultimately, we want to see it done right, and it will be done right. But what we have done today is we are keeping families together. The borders are just as tough, just as strong. They can come in through ports of entry if they want. That's a whole different story. And that's coming in through a process, and the process is what we want. So I want to thank you all very much. I think this is something that makes us feel Thank you very much, everybody. We'll get the wall. We'll get the wall done. We'll get the wall done. Yes?
Ivanka portrayed photos of the children being separated from their
No, Ivanka feels very strongly. My wife feels very strongly about it. I feel very strongly about it. I think anybody with a heart would feel very strongly about it. We don't like to see families separated. At the same time, we don't want people coming into our country illegally. This takes care of the problem. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. She's doing a great job.
All right, you've just watched the president signing this executive order, which he said will end the separation of families. He said he didn't like the sight of families being separated, but the zero-tolerance policy does not end. It's just as these criminal prosecutions now take place, the president says the families will stay together. We're going to bring in Major Garrett now, who's also at the White House. So, Major, why the executive order? Why not just a directive to the Attorney General? Why not then, or wait for legislation long term? What is the White House thinking here?
Well, the White House is essentially asserting that it must follow the law, and to countermand the law, it needs an executive order to provide executive instruction alongside what it says is the law that it is duty-bound to enforce. And that law, the White House says, is duty-bound to enforce, is stopping everyone at the border and prosecuting each and every one of them for the crime of trying to enter the country illegally. Now, other administrations had that law before them and did not universally apply it. This administration, starting in April of this year, under the so-called, and the administration named it this, zero-tolerance policy, universally applied that law. If you're caught at the border, you will be prosecuted. And under a consent decree that was a result of years and years of litigation, the American government had essentially agreed to separate families if they were being prosecuted for crossing the border illegally, because children, it was agreed, should not be subjected to any of the dangers of being incarcerated with adults, whether they're parents or the adults they traveled with. The administration knew that would be the inevitable result of this zero-tolerance policy, separating children. It had to know that. This was a long-standing application or part of immigration policy. The administration went ahead anyway, enforced the zero-tolerance policy, then saw the family separation issue essentially blossom, and become a huge political problem, not only for it, but more importantly for congressional Republicans. And the combined pressure, Republican members of the House, the Senate, First Lady Melania, daughter Ivanka, and others, led the president to essentially overrule his own immigration policy, at least in part. Zero tolerance continues, but these families will now be kept together. What we don't know, Jeff, is what happens to the families that have already been separated. Will they suddenly be put back together? Will this be universal going forward? And will it be able to survive litigation, which those who have watched this issue say is absolutely inevitable? And will Congress use this as an opportunity to solve this with a piece of legislation the president can and will sign? Or will that litigation, or the sense the president signed an executive order, take the heat off Congress? All of these are unknown elements. But what the president is doing is essentially operating with executive power to resolve a crisis in large part of his own creation.
Right. And so, Major, we've heard a lot of people talk about how immigration has been an issue that has needed some adjustments or fixing for decades now. Is there, whether you agree with that or not, in your estimation, is there a further appetite on Capitol Hill right now for some sort of broader legislation?
Well, the House has two bills that it believes is responsive to parts of this dilemma. One, the family separation issue, as well as another attendant immigration issues. But there's no signal at all, Jeff, that the Senate will take up that legislation if it even passes this week. So this is, remember, a Republican-led Congress, Republican House of Representatives, Republican Senate. The margin is narrow in the Republican-led Senate, that's true, and Democrats need to come on board, something the White House has pointed to many times. But there is no sense, at least presently, that either this crisis or the president's own political pressure has moved Congress any closer to a resolution of any issue under the umbrella of immigration, except maybe this one, a family separation. It's possible Congress could, in a bipartisan way, pass a piece of legislation to deal with only that issue, and the president would have the option of signing it. He suggested he very well might.
Okay, Major Garrett, thanks very much from the White House. Bottom line this afternoon, the president has signed this executive order. The family separations that have been taking place at the southern border will end. Much more about all of this on your local news on this CBS station, on our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN, and right here tonight on the CBS Evening News. Until then, I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to CBSNews.com.